Hello, everyone. I'm happy that you are here, that you have not left the conference yet because it's pretty late. So welcome. I'm Robert Pająk, and basically this talk will be about logs in OpenTelemetry, about how basically logs are becoming the first-class citizens in OpenTelemetry. So first of all, a few words about myself. I traveled from Krakow. It's a journey enough for me, so this talk won't be about a journey about, I don't know, Sam or Logly or something. It will be just about, it will be a regular presentation. You can find me as Pelaret on GitHub. I used to create a lot of PRs and a lot of comments, pull requests. I'm hired by Splunk, a Cisco company, but most of my time, like 90%, I'm basically working on open source. I'm very grateful for my employer that I am able to create solutions that work for everyone. Yeah, and basically, I'm an OpenTelemetry Go maintainer, so I drink OpenTelemetry. And I'm contributing to OpenTelemetry Logs like for 2 years already. And a disclaimer, I'm not a native English speaker, but if something is not clear, don't blame my language. It simply means that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So usually when people are, describing some things, they talk about the past, present, future, so how to have a good story. But honestly speaking, during technology presentations, who cares about the past? Let's just talk about the present and the future. Okay, so first of all, I have a question to you. Who knows what is OpenTelemetry? Okay, I'll be good for you and we'll skip the slide for you because almost everyone already knows that OpenTelemetry is an open standard for generating telemetry data, traces, metrics, logs, and profiles are coming. Okay, so a few sentences about the structure of this presentation. First, I will talk about the data model of logs in OpenTelemetry. So what is a log basically in in OpenTelemetry? What are semantics? So what does it mean that there's a log and how is it structured? What is an event? And the APIs in OpenTelemetry for logging. And basically, I will discuss how basically logs are changing from a legacy baggage to something which is a first-class citizen in OpenTelemetry. Okay, question to you. Who has seen logs like this? Honestly, I need your help. Yeah, I have seen like this. So do you see the passwords in the logs? Like, this like indicting thing to find it easier? Like, I think everyone was there, right? But is it a place that you want to be eventually? Yeah, this is, the slide which I showed, the logs, is the reason why we need better logging standards. And how does a proper log record look in OpenTelemetry? So first I want to tell about the log data model. So in OpenTelemetry, a log record, so just a disclaimer, like a clarification, in OpenTelemetry, logs are not a JSON. This is just to make, this is like a domain model representation, so it's like it's in memory. It doesn't have to be JSON, it could be something else. But basically, it's not just a string that's in the console. It's a structured data where you have 2 timestamps. One tells you when something happened. The second timestamp tells where the observability was captured, this telemetry was captured. Second is one of the most vital things in OpenTelemetry, which is the trace context to do the correlation magic. So you have the correlation between tracing, metrics, etc. And you have severities. So one severity is a textual representation, which can tell you something from some logging libraries. A second is like a number, which is like a level. So we can put thresholds in OpenTelemetry thresholds. We have a body, which can be like a message, for instance, and attributes with any additional metadata or log fields or however you want to name it. Also, in OpenTelemetry, we have something called resource, which allows identifying where the software that emitted the log record, and instrumentation scope, which contain information about source code. It can be, for instance, a logger name in Java. It can also be the name of your module where the logs come from. So basically, in OpenTelemetry, logs are not just strings with timestamps, but these are logs or these are entities which carry context. And the interesting thing is that the attribute body can be complex. So there is a notion, a term called any value, which describes that the any value, so this is like the value of an attribute or body, can be any of. Primitive value, so there's nothing magical here, a string, integer, boolean, double, but it can be also an array of any value. An array of any value doesn't mean that the array of integers, it means that each element of the array can be of different type. So the first can be a string, the second will be integer, but also an element of the array can be a map of string to any value. So basically you can say that it is like it's any structure that you can compose like any model. It can be also blob, like a binary large object. And of course, who loves nils and null pointer exceptions? We have empty value as well, because sometimes there's really nothing. So you can approximate to something like a BSON or a document in some documentized storage databases. And here's an example how the complex values look like. So right now, everyone talks about AI. So here's an example how complex attributes could look like in an AI log record or an event maybe. So yeah, so it's rich structure and meaningful data. And the caveat is that complex values are coming to all signals. So in the most recent versions of OTLP, which is the OpenTelemetry protocol, we explicitly said that complex attributes are not, which came from logs, are also coming to the other signals such as spans and metrics. But just the thing that we are adding this feature, it doesn't mean that you need to use them. So use it with care. We just allow using it because in complex scenarios, you need to use complex data, but it doesn't mean that if you have a metric, you need to use a complex value because it can be very troublesome for storing. And okay, but this is data, so this was about the syntax. So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of APIs or libraries for logging. This is nothing new, but what is the most vital in OpenTelemetry, these are the semantics in my opinion. So basically, the thing that we have a common semantics in OpenTelemetry means that if you follow the same patterns, and we actually can search, correlate data across different services in the same way. But let's give some examples. So who knows what OpenTelemetry semantic conventions are? Oh, almost half of you, nice. Yeah, still, for the other half, so basically these are like guidelines from OpenTelemetry which tell you how to use your signals. It tells you about the attributes that you should use, what log levels in which conditions you should use, but this is also like a model of the telemetry that you're producing. And the semantic conventions has also a registry which is organized into groups. So we have, for instance, cross-cutting attributes. So if you have some log record with an exception, the log record can contain a code line number, so you know where the error comes from. You have the exception message, so you know what happened. But you also have the service name in the development environment, so you know from if it's the bug is from production, staging, or which service is it coming from. But the semantic conventions also have signal-specific attributes, so there are also a dedicated set of attributes for logs. And there are also domain-specific attributes, which are also the most important one, so focused on protocols, systems, and shiny new tech like GenAI. But what is the difference between logs and event? The thing is that in OpenTelemetry, a log record is a general purpose login, human readable, something that you emit using your logging libraries, while an event record is a well-defined occurrence that something specific has happened, something that you should care, something that you should actually care about. So long story short, an event record is still a log record, but it has an event name and well-known structure. Well-known structure means that it follows the semantic convention for the attributes that are being used and the types that are used inside. So why the distinction? Because not every log in your application that you emit deserves to be treated like something meaningful. Events are intentional, And this matters because when you have an event like on the right side and everyone uses the same structure, you can create common dashboards. And so you can see that on the left side, you have, this is like not so well structured, but even on the right side, follows some semantics. So this is the same data model, but just different semantical meaning. And now a little interesting thing. There is a software developer called Jerry Morrell, and he wrote a nice blog post called A Practitioner Guide to White Events. So the idea behind his blog post is, why do we need, the only thing that we may need or log is just actually something which he calls white events. So the idea is simple. Instead of having traces, metrics, you just put like logs which contain all of the information that later you can analyze and basically create the spans and metrics based on those log events. And I need to admit something. Actually, doing something like this in production in 2019, and not because I was some genius, but only because I had only access to efficient log backend. And when you have one tool, you just sometimes get creative. But of course, there are huge trade-offs of such approach. The thing is that having such approach, you need additional storage cost. You know, logs are not free. You emit something, you need to store it. You need to aggregate the data. There is a processing overhead to then calculate the spans and metrics out of this stuff. And you also generate a huge network traffic. So because there's a solution, it doesn't mean that you need to and it doesn't mean that you need to use it. It's just one of the solutions that may work for you or not. For me personally, we are just keeping the log retention for 1 week. So that's why we were able to afford it. But when it works, it can give you an X-ray vision. You can read about it more in those 2 blog posts, which I think are the best one on this topic. Okay, so until recently, in OpenTelemetry, logs were mostly about bridging existing logs coming from logging libraries into the collector using something called OpenTelemetry Bridge API. But the thing is that because we want to have some semantics, we want to have these events which have these OpenTelemetry events, we need OpenTelemetry API that we may need to use directly. So now let's talk about the user-facing OpenTelemetry Logging API. The fees that finally can give developers a proper first-class way to emit logs directly through OpenTelemetry. So here's just one example. So the reasons for it is that there's no need to go through traditional logging libraries. So you do not need to go through the bridging overhead of some instrumentation that instruments, for example, Log4j. And you get the full feature access. So logging libraries often do not follow the semantics OpenTelemetry. Most logging libraries do not have a concept of an event name. Also, there are a lot of them do not have structured, do not use structured data. Also, if you use an OpenTelemetry logging API, you can reuse attributes that you have produced for adding signals. So if you're writing code and you want to use the same attributes for metrics, for spans, you can reuse the same data structure for your logs. And it is critical for instrumentation authors because you do not want your instrumentation library to depend on some concrete library version or even library. You do not want your developer to, to depend on Log4j. And also for developers, even if they use Log4j, they may want to use OpenTelemetry APIs for emitting something which is following the OpenTelemetry semantics. And last word, this is not about replacing everything. We are just giving you option. It doesn't mean that you need to rewrite your application and just use OpenTelemetry Log API everywhere. It's just about giving possibility, and you can choose both the solutions at the same time. So you can still use the legacy logs and libraries and use them with the bridges, but we give you the option to use log API to emit new OpenTelemetry events. And now let's talk about performance. Because what is amazing structured logging if it kills your application performance? Basically, nothing is free in software. If we create the structured logs, it can consume your CPU, it can increase your memory applications. So recently in OpenTelemetry, we have added enabled API, and this is just a way to check. If before emitting something and constructing the log record, we can check if actually somebody needs it and it is interested in it. So the idea is simple. Before spending time on the CPU and making some heap allocations, let's check if actually somebody is listening and wants to have this log record. But the thing which is really exciting is that this enable functionality, it doesn't just make the OpenTelemetry logs faster. It opens the door to hooking to existing performant OS native tracing systems like user events in Linux or ETW for Windows. So there are dedicated tracing systems that are very fast and created on the kernel level, which are extremely fast. So basically, the efficiency between them is on a memory level. It doesn't need, you do not make any network calls or you do not write to unifies, everything just in memory, and there are efficient ring buffers. So yeah, it makes it possible because you can hook to it. And if you want to deep dive into this, oh, it's not running well, there's a great presentation by CJ Thomas and Chris Gray, Beyond OTLP, Unlocking the Potential of OS Native Tracing, which talks about this concept of using the OS native solutions for logging. And also, during the observability, CJ had another presentation about using OS native ring buffers for logging. So that's what we learned today. We've all been writing trash logs, right? And this costs money. They're slowing applications because we do not, as SRE, you do not want to look at these log records that basically give you no information about. So the OpenTelemetry provides you not only the structure syntax, but especially the semantics that tell you how to have consistent structured data that you can build dashboard on, and also it provides you some recommendations. And at last, we are giving APIs, so you can use it directly, and you can also do it in a performant way. So basically, the idea is to add something which is performant, you can get rich telemetry and integrate with your existing software and other solutions. So that's a kind of evolution which everyone wants. Yeah, and thank you. If you want to check out this presentation later on your own pace, it's on GitHub, it's open source. The presenter's notes are included, so if my English was bad, you can just read it. And I want to especially thank Ludo Miłach, Trask, Ted Young, Austin Parker, who are parts of the OpenTelemetry Logs SIG that are helping driving the logs further. Tyler Yan, Sijo, and Jonathan Amsterdam, who are helping me a lot in the implementation specifics, into making sure that the things that we are proposing are performant. And also OpenTelemetry Go and specification zigs that basically are very involved into into logs. And everyone who raised their hands and confessed that they saw those kind of crappy logs. And GenAI, because it helped me to write this presentation. Okay, so right now, don't let your logs to be trash. Use OpenTelemetry semantics and be happy with OpenTelemetry. This is my handle on GitHub. You can find me on CNCF Slack. You can come to me and ask any questions. And yeah, do you have any questions? Yes, okay.
All right, thanks. Great talk. So just some context to what I've been working on is I'm pretty new to this, and I started trying to collect Windows event logs. And the issue I'm kind of running into is when I try to batch them.
Could you repeat, please? The issue is?
The issue is when I'm trying to batch these events together. So the log structure that I was seeing was a little more complicated. It was like resource logs, and then a resource, and a scoped logs, and then a scope, and then log records and all that. So I was producing these log records from Windows Event, but they didn't have any attributes in the record section or the instrumentation scope. So I figured that's why they weren't being batched. So then I had added those attributes to the resource, and they were identical, but I wasn't able to get them to be batched together. So is there something that I'm missing that has to be done to kind of enable that functionality?
I have a question just to double check.
Sure, yeah.
Are you just talking about some instrumentation on, I don't know, for .NET?
No, this was like the Windows event logger.
Yes, but with event logger, but you're emitting to Windows event logs, right? Or
Yeah.
am I not following?
It was like I forget the terminology, a resource extractor, or whatever the name is. It was just pulling from the Windows event log. So there's two channels, like application, and then one is like system events.
Yes, yeah.
So I would just post an event to the log from the command line just to create one.
Okay.
And all the events that I created from one channel got batched together. And then ones that came from a different channel on the same machine were unable to be batched, even though it seemed like the data structure was identical such that they could be batched. I posted this on the Slack for the hotel collector, so I might add you at that because it's kind of.
Okay, so I see. So
yeah.
So you mean that there's some receiver dedicated for?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I will try to help you out and follow. We can follow with you.
Okay.
There are also have you gone? There is also collector guys in the OpenTelemetry observatory. Yeah. I see that there are. Yeah, actually, I can see that Antoine is showing. Yeah, I will try to help you out.
Okay.
I do not have answers, but it's good that you're asking, and it is good that you're reaching to us. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
You showed the Go API.
Yeah.
What's the state? Is everything GA now in all the SDKs?
No. Oh, that's a very good question. I have forgotten to say it.
Yes.
What is here, as I mentioned, is now and the future, right? And a lot of this, as in OpenTelemetry disclaimer, a lot of this stuff is only the specification. It's not yet adopted in languages. Which I know is extremely frustrating for a lot of users, for myself as a maintainer as well, and I totally agree. And we do as much as possible to basically do this stuff as well. So so regarding Go, one of the things what we were working on was this making these complex attributes, because we didn't want to create another package for log attributes, which would be different from the attributes package. So once it will be stable in the specification that it is very allowed, we are going further and making basically stabilizing the APIs, etc. Also, this fancy user-facing API, this is also not something that we are extremely sure that it will be in the OpenTelemetry Go. The thing is that we are using logs API, which are used by the log bridges. And maybe we just make a user-friendly facade which will use this interface, just to make sure that if we make, because adding something to the interface is a breaking change, and we do not want to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I tried to do log events in the Java through the normal one, and it's very hard. So I think a specific API
okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, but it's a good question. We are getting there, and I also encourage to discuss the thing. If there are any pain points, feel free to give us feedback. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. A question about the upcoming SDK changes for the user-facing. When running apps in Kubernetes, the pattern that I've seen most commonly has been like console log, and then the collector will use file log receiver. So do you think that the best practice will change to OTLP with these new structured logging semantics? Or do you think console log plus file log receiver will still be common?
The reality is that it will be still there, because that nobody will rewrite the applications. There are a lot of legacy applications. That's the world we're living in. But I think that going forward, this is the same for OpenTelemetry. At some point of time, nobody is using it. They were just using traces. A lot of stuff, even when metrics were there, people were still using primitives. It's basically slowly changing, and we just need time for the adoption. But I think the idea is that people will use these APIs, and we'll get from the Basically, we get away from file, for storing the files. It will go through OTLP, maybe some very complex, high-efficiency scenarios using the OS native solutions. And yeah, that's my opinion and my future, prediction.
Yeah, exciting, cool. Thank you.
Kind of a legacy question. Will there be some standard way for mapping syslog structured data onto the OpenTelemetry data model?
I think there's already a syslog receiver in OpenTelemetry collector. Yeah, am I right? Yeah. Great. So it's already there, and I'm not sure what's the status of this receiver. So, but yeah, stable? No.
It parses the structured data or just puts it all into body?
Yes, it does.
Great.
Thanks, Antoine.
Multiple different syslog receivers in different formats because syslog is more than one format. Use the microphone.
Yeah, Antoine, you have time. We have time.
Yes, the collector has a syslog receiver with different formats because syslog has different parsing formats. And there's always one that doesn't work, so please file issues.